Good morning, students. We have been completed our civics lesson 1, that is Indian Constitution. In this section, we are going to revise that lesson for your unit test 2. Students, please note down all the points which is presented in this video. It will be easy for you to revise during the time of examination. Let's start our section. In the lesson Indian Constitution, we studied what is Constitution and making of Constitution, the salient features of Constitution, and then about citizenship, the fundamental rights and the related articles, directive principles of state policy and their articles, then fundamental duties, then centered state relations, an official language of our country, and emergency provisions of our country. What is Constitution? The Constitution is the fundamental law of a country which reflects the fundamental principles on which the government of that country is based. Constitution is the vehicle of a nation's progress. It is concerned with institutional fabric and the framework of the distribution of powers between the various organs of the government and between the union and the states. The concept of constitution was first originated in USA. I repeat, the constitution is the fundamental law of a country which reflects the fundamental principles on which the government of that country is based. The concept of constitution was first originated in USA. Next, making of Indian Constitution. The Assembly held its first meeting on December 9, 1946. Dr. Sachidananda Sinha, the oldest member, was elected as the temporary president of the Assembly. But while the work was in progress, Dr. Sachidananda Sinha died. Next, on December 11, 1946, Dr. Rajendra Prasad elected as its president. Then on August 29, 1949, drafting committee appointed with Dr. B.R. Ambedkar as the chairman. On November 4, 1947, draft constitution was submitted. On November 26, 1949, drafting was completed. Next, January 24, 1950, the handwritten constitution signed. Then January 26, 1950, constitution was legally enforced. Then the time taken to prepare the final draft was 2 years, 11 months and 18 days. During the discussion, 2,473 amendments were presented. Next, we will see the members of Constitution Assembly. Dr. Sachidananda Sinha, the oldest member, was elected as the temporary president of the Assembly. While the work was in progress, Dr. Sachidananda Sinha died. Then Dr. Rajendra Prasad was elected as the president of the Assembly. Next, H.C. Mukherjee and V.T. Krishnamachari was elected as vice president. The Assembly worked through various committees and the draft of the constitution was prepared by the drafting committee under the chairmanship of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. So, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar is recognized as the father of the Constitution of India. Prem Bihari Naren Raizada was the calligrapher of the Indian Constitution. The original constitution was handwritten by him in a flowing italic style. Next, content of constitution. After the draft had been discussed by the people, the press, provincial assemblies and others, the constitution was finally adopted on November 26, 1949. It contained a preamble, 22 parts, 395 articles and 8 schedules. But now it is improved as preamble, 25 parts, 470 articles and 12 schedules. Next, salient features of Indian Constitution. It is the lengthiest of all the written constitution of the world. It has borrowed most of its provisions from the constitutions of various countries. It is partly rigid and partly flexible. It establishes a federal system of government. Our constitution establishes the parliamentary system not only at the state but also in the center. Our constitution makes India as a secular state. It provides an independent judiciary. Our constitution introduces universal adult franchise and accords the right to vote to all citizens above 18 years of age without any discrimination. It provides single citizenship and it makes special provisions for minorities, SC, ST, etc. Next, preamble. The term preamble refers to the introduction or preface to the Constitution. It consists of the ideals, objectives, and basic principles of the Constitution. It contains the summary or essence of the Constitution. It has great value and has been described as the key to the Constitution. So the preamble is described as key to the Constitution, like our index of the book. The preamble to the Indian Constitution is based on the objective resolution drafted by Jawaharlal Nehru, which was adopted by the Constitution Assembly on January 22, 1947. It has been amended once by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, which added 3 new words, that is socialist, secular and integrity. I repeat, preamble is the introduction of our Constitution. It has been described as the key to the Constitution. It is based on the objective resolution drafted by Jawaharlal Nehru, which was adopted by the Constituent Assembly on January 22, 1947. It has been amended once. It has been amended once by the 42 Constitutional Amendment Act of 1976, which added 3 new words, socialist, secular and integrity. Next, we discussed about what is citizenship and Citizenship Act, acquisition of citizenship and laws of citizenship. First, we will see what is citizenship. The word citizen is derived from the Latin term civis. It means resident of a city-state. The word citizen is derived from the Latin term civis, which means resident of a city-state. The Constitution of India provides for a single and uniform citizenship for the whole of India. So Article 5 to 11 and that Part 2 of the Constitution deals with the citizenship. So citizenship deals with the Articles 5 to 11 under Part 2. Next, Citizenship Act of 1955. It provides for the acquisition and loss of citizenship after the commencement of the Constitution. This act has been amended so far 8 times. Originally, The Citizenship Act 1955 also provided for the Commonwealth citizenship, but this provision was replaced by the Citizenship Act 2003. So based on this act, a person can acquire and can lose the citizenship of that country. Next, acquisition of citizenship. The Citizenship Act of 1955 prescribes 5 ways of acquiring citizenship, that is, by birth, by descent, by registration, by naturalization, and by incorporation of territory. So based on the Citizenship Act of 1955, a person can acquire citizenship by 5 ways, that is, by birth. Based on this, all persons born in India on or after January 26, 1950 are treated as citizens by birth. Next, by descent. A person born outside India on or after January 26, 1950 shall be a citizen of India by descent if his father is a citizen of India at the time of his birth. Next is by registration. Based on this, a person can acquire citizenship of India by registration with appropriate authority. Next is by naturalization. A foreigners can acquire citizenship on application for naturalization to the government of India. Last, by incorporation of territory. In the event of a certain territory being added to the territory of India, the government of India shall specify the persons of that territory who shall be citizen of India. So based on this 5 ways, a person can acquire citizenship of our country. Next, laws of citizenship. The Citizenship Act of 1955 prescribes 3 ways of losing citizenship, whether acquired under the Act or prior to it under the Constitution, that is, renunciation, termination, and deprivation. Based on this act, a person will lose the citizenship of our country. One is renunciation. It can be voluntarily renounced by a citizen. Next, termination. It can be terminated if a person acquires the citizenship of some other country. Last, deprivation. The central government can deprive a naturalized citizen if it is satisfied that the citizenship was acquired by fraud, false representation of materials, facts on indulgence in trade with enemy countries, or if the person has been sentenced to imprisonment for a period of 2 years. Next is about fundamental rights. The fundamental rights are enshrined in Part 3 of the Constitution from Articles 12 to 35. In this regard, the framers of the Constitution derived inspiration from the Constitution of USA. Originally, the Constitution provided for 7 fundamental rights. At present, there are only 6 fundamental rights. While fundamental rights are available to all persons, certain fundamental rights are available only to Indian citizens. So the 6 fundamental rights are right to equality, right to freedom, right against exploitation, right to religion, cultural and educational rights, right to constitutional remedies. Let me revise one by one. First, right to equality. Based on this right, Article 40 provides equality before law. Article 15 is prohibition of discrimination on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex or place of birth. Article 16 provides equality of opportunity in matters of public employment. Article 17 provides abolition of untouchability. Article 18 provides abolition of titles except military and academic. Next, right to freedom. Based on this right, Article 19 provides freedom of speech and expression, assembly, association, movement, and resident and profession. Article 20 provides protection in respect of conviction for offences. Article 21 protection of life and personal liberty. Article 21A right to elementary education. Article 22 protection against arrest and detention in certain cases. Next, right against exploitation. Based on this, Article 23 provides prohibition of traffic in human beings and forced labor. Article 24 is prohibition of employment of children in factories, etc. Next, right to religion. Based on this, Article 25 provides freedom of conscience and free profession, practice and propagation of religion. Article 26 is freedom to manage religious affairs. Article 27 is freedom from payment of taxes for promotion of any religion. Article 28 is freedom from attending religious instruction or worship in certain educational institutions. Next, cultural and educational rights. Based on this, Article 29 provides protection of language, script and culture of minorities. Article 30 provides right of minorities to establish and administer educational institutions. Last, right to constitutional remedies. Under Article 32, it allows individuals to seek redressal for the violation of their fundamental rights. Right to constitutional remedies under Article 32. A writ is an order or command issued by a court in writing under its seal. It is in the nature of a command or prohibition from performing certain acts that are specified in the order of the court. I repeat, a writ is an order or command issued by a court in writing under its seal. It is in the nature of a command or prohibition from performing certain acts that are specified in the order of the court. Both the Supreme Court and the High Court are empowered to issue 5 kinds of writs. They are habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, quo warranto and certiorari. That's why the Supreme Court is called the guardian of the Constitution. The 5 kinds of writs are habeas corpus, mandamus, prohibition, certiorari, quo warranto. Next, we saw directive principles of state policy, which is also called DPSP. The are enumerated in Part 4 of the Constitution from Articles 36 to 51. The Constitution does not contain any classification of directive principles. These principles are not enforceable by the court, but they are fundamental for the governance of the country. The government is duty bound to apply these principles while making law. The aim of this principle to promoting the social welfare of the people. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar described these principles as novel features of the Indian Constitution. Next we saw difference between fundamental rights and directive principles of state policy. Fundamental rights was derived from the Constitution of the USA. Directive principles of state policy was drawn on the model of the Constitution of Ireland. Fundamental rights, even the government cannot take away or abridge these rights. Directive principles of state policy are mere instructions to the government. Fundamental rights are enforceable by a court of law. Directive principles of state policy are not enforceable in any court. Fundamental rights have legal sanctions, but directive principles have moral and political sanctions. Fundamental rights strengthen political democracy in the country. Directive principles implementation of these principles ensures social and economic democracy. Fundamental rights or natural rights and directive principle lead to protect human rights. Next we saw fundamental duties of our country. Fundamental duties. 1. To abide by the Constitution and respect its ideals and institutions, the flag and the national anthem. 2. To cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired the national struggle for freedom. 3. To uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. 4. To defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. 5. To promote harmony and the spirit of common brotherhood among all the people of Indian, transcending religious, linguistic and regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. 6. To value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. 7. To protect and improve the natural environment including forest, lake, river and wildlife, and to have compassion for living creature. 8. To develop scientific temper, humanism and the spirit of enquiry and reform. 9. To safeguard public property and to abjure violence. 10. To strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. Last, to provide opportunities for education to his child or ward between the age of 6 and 14 years. Next we discuss center-state relations. The Constitution of India, being federal in structure, divides all powers between the center and the states. The center-state relations can be studied under three divisions: legislative relation, administrative relation, and financial relation. First, legislative relation. The Union Parliament has the power to legislate for the whole or any part of the territory of India, which includes not only the states but also the union territories. The seventh schedule of the Constitution embodies three lists, namely Union list, state list, and concurrent list. Let's see one by one. Based on this Union list, the central government has power to make law in defense, banking, currency, foreign affairs, and communication. And in state list, the state government has power to make law in police, trade, agriculture, and irrigation. But in concurrent list, both central and state government jointly make laws in education, forest, trade, marriage, adoption, and succession. First, Union list. The Parliament enjoys the exclusive power to make law on subjects enumerated in the Union list. Then, state list. The state legislature has a power to make law on the state list. But in concurrent list, both Parliament and state legislatures have power to make law on subjects contained in the concurrent list. But in case of conflict between the law of the state and the union on a subject in the concurrent list, the law of Parliament prevails. The 42nd Amendment Act of 1976 transferred 5 subjects to concurrent list from state lists, that is education, forest, weight and measures, protection of animals and birds, and administration of justice. In 1969, the Tamil Nadu government appointed a 3-member committee under the chairmanship of Dr. P.V. Rajamannar to examine the entire question of center-state relations. Next, administrative relation. The administrative power of a state extends only to its own territory, but in the union, it extends to make law or to sign any treaty or agreement. Next, financial relations. Article 268 to 293 in Part 12 deal with the financial relations between center and the states. The center and states are empowered by the Constitution to impose various kinds of taxes. And certain taxes are imposed and collected by the central government and divided between the central and state government based on the recommendation of Finance Commission appointed by the President under Article 280. Our late Prime Minister Indira Gandhi appointed the Sarkaria Commission in 1983 to make an enquiry into the state-center relations. Next, official language. Part 17 of the Constitution deals with the official language in Articles 343 to 351. Its provisions are divided into 4 heads, namely language of the Union, regional languages, language of the judiciary and text of law, and special directives. Next, the first language committee was appointed in 1955. It submitted its report in 1956. As a follow-up of the report, Parliament enacted the Official Language Act in 1963. The Act laid down that even after 15 years, English may continue to be used along with Hindi for all official purposes of the Union and also for transaction of business in Parliament. This Official Language Act 1967, it was provided that the use of English would continue without any time limit. The Constitution also permitted certain regional languages to be used for intra-state official transactions. Initially, the Constitution recognized 14 languages, but at present 22 languages are recognized by our Constitution. Next, classical languages. In 2004, the Government of India decided to create new category of languages called as classical languages. So far, the 6 languages are granted the classical languages status, namely Tamil in 2004, Sanskrit in 2005, Telugu in 2008, Kannada in 2008, Malayalam in 2013 and Odia in 2014. These 6 languages are recognized as classical language of our country. Next, emergency provisions. The central government have been vested with extraordinary power to deal with the condition of emergency. 3 types of emergencies in the Constitution. One is national emergency under Article 352. Next, state emergency under Article 356. And last, financial emergency under Article 360. First, national emergency. The President under Article 352 can declare emergency if he is satisfied that India's security is threatened due to war, external aggression or armed rebellion. This national emergency is classified into 2 categories. One is external emergency, another one is internal emergency. When a national emergency is declared on the ground of war or external aggression, it is known as external emergency. When a national emergency is declared on the ground of armed rebellion, it is known as internal emergency. Next, state emergency. Under Article 356, the President can declare an emergency in a state if the governor reports that a situation has arisen under which the government of a state cannot be carried on in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. When the Election Commission certifies that there are difficulties in holding assembly in certain state means, on that time the President will declare state emergency. After such an announcement, state legislature is suspended and the state is governed by the governor on behalf of the President. For the first time, the President rule was imposed in Punjab in 1951. Next one is financial emergency. Under Article 360 authorizes the President to declare financial emergency if he is satisfied that the financial stability or credit of India or of any part of it is in danger. In this type of emergency, the salaries and allowance of any class of persons serving union or state, including the judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, can be reduced by an order of the President. But this type of emergency has not been declared in India so far. So based on this financial emergency, a president can reduce the salary of any government servant. So students, revise all the points which is presented in this video and do well your exam.